Hey, hi, Victor.
Hey,
So
hi Suresh. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for extending your evening. I know a little late in the evening, and it's really quite exciting to talk to an evolving leader, evolving manager, and and look forward to hear what are some of the things that you will be able to share as you have kickstarted your management journey, so to speak, right? So thanks
Yep.
for
Thanks for the invitation too.
certainly. All right. Well, first up, congratulations that you took on a managerial role or a management
Thank you.
path from your engineer position. Okay. Um,
Yep.
I can certainly reflect what I have gone through. Um, I started as an engineer, more from a computer science background, was doing robotics, and then moved into uh, application area, and then moved into systems area, started working as a systems engineer for a pretty long duration, and then moved on to management. Any
Yep.
engineer or an individual contributor, when move from an engineer position or an individual contributor position to a management position, they still think and hold on to things that they have been doing, right? So being a manager, it is totally a different job. But
Yep.
being an engineer, and that can't be unlearned, and quite a number of times the failure kicks in when the new manager is not letting go what he or she was doing before becoming a manager.
Yep.
He or she would want to hold on to things that they have been doing, not spending enough time in doing what they should be doing as manager, right? So with that backdrop and background, let's hear from you. Maybe a tiny bit of your background and what moved you to a management liking or a management role interest.
Okay. So basically, self introduction of myself and what interests and what prompts me to go into management, right?
Okay.
Media management, right?
Right.
Okay. So hi Suresh and anyone who's watching this video. First, again, Suresh, thanks for inviting me to share a bit about myself. So I'm actually not very young already. I may look young, but I'm actually 36 this year.
Okay.
So I'm a typical Singaporean. I graduated from NTU, and then yeah. So in fact, my first job was not in Singapore. I
Mhm.
actually went to China. I worked for 3 years there. I was working for a quite a big homegrown logistics company. Actually, I don't mind sharing for working with YCH. So I spent 3 years in China, 2.5 years in the emerging city, Chengdu and Chongqing, and the other half a year in the bigger cities in Shanghai.
Great.
So yeah, that's about me. Currently, I'm actually or recently I was recently promoted almost a month as a regional quality assurance manager, and also in continuous improvement in a medical device company. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what prompts me to go into this management? Of course, first is from career progression, and secondly, right, as a coming coming into this sphere, right, I'm actually have more control and more visibility, particularly in a regional context,
Mhm.
whereby I work with many stakeholders of different cultures, of different way of working, and and of course having a team, that's not just only in Singapore, but also in the various countries around Southeast Asia. So this also allows me, to contribute more, and I believe that a lot of things, right, should be worked through process, right? So having the right process, and of course having the right people, right, and me being a key part in establishing all these processes and training the people, it gives me a lot of satisfaction. So this will not be possible. This will not necessarily be possible if I remain as a single contributor. And of course, the third thing is that there must be opportunity. So in my company, I was fortunate to have this opportunity, and then once opportunity arises, I took it. Yeah.
Fantastic. You really related fair bit of leadership qualities when you spoke about how you emerged into the management path. You started off your career in China, worked in few cities in China, and then you moved to other jobs in Singapore, and then you came to this current job where current company where you started working. And to the question about what brought you to management, you touched on things like people, you touched on things like processes. Those are two fundamental areas of to be a manager needs to know, needs to learn, and look like that seemed to be something it was breezing in. And the third thing that you mentioned about is opportunity. Looks like you have been getting your skills up and ready. If not, you won't be
Yep.
talking about people, you won't be talking about processes. And when you were ready,
Yep.
opportunity showed up and you got in there. Fantastic.
Yep.
It's really so nice to hear that it has brought you to where you need to be since you were prepared when the opportunity knocked the door, you were the right person, and then you got through and got in. Great
Yep.
sharing about that. That's a good, fantastic introduction. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
So, talking about management, the first and foremost thing that comes to me, and most of the time, this is one very big area that I normally talk to people about in leadership, in management, is fundamental communication. As an individual or an individual contributor or someone who has a day job where the work comes through email, work comes through the manager giving you what needs to be done for the day, and you get it and you start working on it. And that could be the communication components within that. But when you move from an engineer position to a manager position, communication becomes fundamental to your day-to-day activities because you got to be talking to people, not just your own team, across a team and above and beyond. It could be so many other stakeholders. So based on what you have been going through in the past few months after becoming or while in the process of becoming a manager, what in your view communication has played a part in your transition from an engineer to a manager?
Okay. Thank you for question. So first and foremost, I think I'm a bit fortunate because I had some probation period, or you call it a heads up,
Mhm.
before I took on this role. So I think from a single contributor, or at least in my perspective, right? So I believe as a single contributor, right? Firstly, the expectation is different. So what do I mean by that? As a single contributor, right? Uh, my stakeholders and the people look at me more as a problem solver, more as a technical expert in my field. My field, in this case, quality assurance, and yeah. So, but when I move to a manager, that's different. So first and foremost, I have people reporting to me. I need to be responsible for the person reporting to me, and not just the work or the performance, and also the what kind of his welfare, right? So that's one, and secondly, right? So my performance is not just localized to myself, right? It's my team, and I only succeed if my team succeeds, right? And because so one example, so if let's say my team member uh, made a mistake, right? So people will not look at my team member, they will look at me because I'm the head of department, right? I'll be responsible.
Yep.
So so it's expectations from stakeholders. uh, uh, to summarize, it's not just myself but my team. And I think thirdly, at least in my context as a regional manager, right? So once I go to manager role, the expectations from the region becomes different. And so I'll need to represent my region in regional and global meetings. So my visibility increases, and and there will be definitely new challenges because you know when there's visibility, right? So there will definitely be a lot of opportunities. I would say uh, a lot of arrows being thrown in a positive way in a lot of projects, improvement projects that need to work cross-functional and
Mhm.
cross boundaries. So the expectation change, right? Because you need to, you're not just only a technical expert, localized area and localized scope. Your scope increases. And when you are involved in projects, right, you also have more accountabilities, and of course, the late nights will come because of the various time zones. So in the morning it will be your own region, right? In the afternoon it will be a Europe time, and at night, which is now, which are in fact gonna have a call at 11 p.m. today, the US time. So I think that I think it's interesting, but of course there are some sacrifices as now as a regional manager that I have to take because of the added scope and the added communication and also the cross boundary and the cross functional tasks and projects.
Fantastic, fantastic. One thing that
Did I answer the question?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you shared
Yep.
quite a bit about what communication is all about, and then you started talking about your team. That's key to the success, and you nailed it very well, saying that if my team succeeds, then I will succeed. And I do not know quite a lot of new managers. It takes time for them to realize that the success is not an individual success, it is a team success. And if as a manager you are not really focusing on the team's success, giving them what they need, helping them and supporting them in order for them to succeed, so that it will reflect back in the team, and then eventually it will reflect back on you. So that's fantastic.
Yep.
And other area of communication that you are expanding yourself into is talking to other stakeholders, and being in an MNC global organization where you have to have your interactions meetings with your colleagues in the Europe time zone, your colleagues in the US time zone. I believe
Yep.
you also mentioned that 11 o'clock you have a call. So that brings your US counterparts and European counterparts together for that meeting, right? So MNC,
Yep.
that's that's the good thing with the MNCs, where you get an opportunity to learn, you get an opportunity to collaborate, partner with the different cultural people, right? So
Yep.
one thing, let me just allow me to share this. I used to work in an organization where the spread is across the globe, and within Asia Pacific, I was a Asia Pacific, Japan Asia Pacific lead for systems support organization in Sun Microsystems and Oracle, right? So that itself, just within Asia Pacific region, is a span of 17 hours, right? Starting from New Zealand, goes all the way to India time zone. It's literally 17 hours, which is a lot more than what one region can cover. Beyond that, when my dotted line boss was in UK and my boss was in US, so that makes it like 24 hours. But it does not really mean that you've got to be active across 24 hours. So long as you know when to get activated, what you should be doing, and most important, you should be available for your team in your local
Yep.
time zone at any point of time. You should be available to help, assist, support your team. It does not mean
Yep.
that you do things for them, rather, you empower them to do what they should be doing. And if they are
Yep.
out, if they are in need, then you jump in and assist. And then pretty much you cover that. And it's really amazing, especially the people who work in an MNC setup. They get a chance to really taste this kind of organizational culture, this kind of across the board 24/7 kind, but it is not really 24/7 so long as you're passionate about leading, managing, and contributing in such a way to make a difference. Great.
Yep.
So you are an emerging leader, right? So you start off with what you have been doing. Your key attributes. What do you think are your key attributes as you are emerging and evolving? So seeing those key attributes, which are the ones which are driving you to take you to the next level. What are those?
I I believe first and foremost, or at least that was the positive feedback that I received. So firstly, I'm someone who take initiative and enterprising.
Okay.
So what I mean by initiative and enterprising is I don't see the problems as problems. I really see the problems as challenges and opportunities, to do something, to improve it and resolve it. Because I believe that not only if can resolve all these challenges, especially the stickier ones, not only it will be good for a company, but it will also be good for my own personal development.
Mm-hmm.
Because along the way, I've gained a lot of knowledge, I gained a lot of skill, and also a lot of very interesting journey. I mean, I could think of many stories. So I remember last year there was an issue in India, one of our warehouse.
Okay.
So it basically is quite sticky, as in it's not only issue as in supply chain, but there were also a lot of quality related, and I would say the root cause on the processes. So when I knew about this, I didn't have much time, but I was asked to go to India in like 2 weeks or even less than 2 weeks, and basically that was basically a time frame for me to just get my visa up, because
Okay.
I need to apply a visa. So once my visa was approved, I actually literally flew down and flew over, sorry, to India. And in fact, that was my first trip to India
Mm-hmm.
ever. And yeah, so and once I arrived, the next day I'm literally down to work. I'm meeting a group of people I've never met before. Fortunately, they could still speak English, and it took me a little while to understand the accent, but that was about a few hours. So afterwards, once I got into groove, and then I started to get my hands dirty to work with the team to resolve the issue. So the good news is that after 4 days, we managed to resolve the key issues, and I came back being very fulfilled. Not only not only I managed to resolve the issue, but I personally also I got a lot of fulfillment. And yeah, of course that helped my promotion. Yeah, definitely. So this is one example that I believe that taking initiative and enterprising, whereby I do not know that I was given a very short lead time, but then I took the 2 weeks to really sit down to understand what's the issues. Of course, having some conference calls with the India team there to know the situation, identify the situation, identify what are the key problems, and then of course think of some corrective actions. And when I'm down in India, and when I really literally on the floor to see what's the issues, to validate the problems that I see, and then of course work with the team, because at the end of the day, right, I'm not based there. I need the team support, and of course the solution, the best solution usually comes from the team itself, right? Because they are day-to-day operational, they day-to-day know what's the issues. For me, right, I would say I'm there of course as a spark to initiate, uh, and very importantly to also facilitate, because I believe that these guys know what's the problem, they also know what's the solution, and my job is to help to bring them together. And of course, as me, right, because I'm coming from also a subject matter expert, to also share some of the good practices, which again not necessarily a copy and paste, but a good reference point. And through the 3 to 4 days whereby we do a brainstorming, we do some trial and error, and once we are confident that this is a potential solution, and that's where we sit down together, we map out the process, the ST's process and the to be process. We identified these to be, we agreed, and then next is the action items, where we list down what are the action items for us to close the gap from a ST's to a to be. And last but not least, of course, accountability and a follow up, which I continue on, even though I came back home, and because I want to make sure the team succeed for the next 2 to 3 months. So I actually continue to support them. Yeah. So, but again, my role, I would see myself here as someone who take a lot of initiative, enterprising as in to come up with new solutions, to share the best practices, and to work together with team, to come up with what call it, relevant and customized for their context. So this is one example. I think at least for me, for MNC culture, right, when the culture is when it encourages us to try to be a bit more creative, right, where they allow us that yes, if we fail, but that's not the end. We learn from the mistake and we continue to grow. So that, I think that's the first factor, the initiative and enterprising. I think the second success factor, it's I'm a team player. So I believe that, one person cannot achieve everything.
Mm-hmm.
So together, right, each achieve more, right? There's an acronym for team, TEAM. Together, each achieve more. So working together as a team, and especially, and that's very important for me because my role itself, even though when I was senior contributor, is still pretty cross-functional. I would say maybe about 40% of my role as a single contributor is cross functional, and the other 60% is where I come as a subject matter expert. So in the 40%, I've learned that to work together as a team, uh that at, that when the team succeed, when the project succeed, I also succeed. So that's the second factor that I think is important, or at least help me to succeed. That is having a team mindset. Yeah.
Those are the two.
So at least that helped me as a single contributor.
Okay.
So and of course, and of course, the third point, I need to be good. I need to be competent. I would say not just competent, but also resourceful in my domain, right? Because when I joined a company, I was actually the only QA person
Mm-hmm.
in the organization. So and my boss was very far away at that time. My boss was in China. So I always joke with my boss that my boss is more like advisor, because at the end of the day I have to resolve the issue myself, because I won't say alone, but I'm actually um yeah, in a way alone in my office, because my boss is so far away, right? And if anything, if any key issues happen, right, I will not be able to wait for her to advise, and I need to resolve them quickly. So yeah, I would say being I mean, this is a very basic, because you need to be competent, but literally this is really important, because I've seen people who are not, I would say, not that competent or not that skillful in their role, and that is one of the reasons that might let them to not succeed in the role. Because many a times when I read the JD, right,
Mm-hmm.
we may think that we are qualified, but when we're going into the company, right, you might think that, oh, there might be some mismatch. So this competency is not just skills, it's also the culture, I would say, together. So skills and culture, sometimes you may have the skills, right, but if the culture doesn't fit you, so it might also not be a good fit, and you will not be able to achieve the deliverables. So I
Okay.
guess it's a third factor. I guess that my skills that I have, the problems that was facing organization, and also the culture, right, it was quite a good fit for me.
Okay.
So with this good fit, right? With this good fit, it helps me to, as a springboard for me to succeed and to take on more new challenges.
Okay. Fantastic. You pull them all together, I should say. Um, the reason why I'm saying that you pull them all together, Victor, is that being an individual contributor, or a single person doing your day job versus a manager, all those qualities that you mentioned, taking initiative and then energizing to really steer the problem when the problem is put in front of you, you are able to really do what is needed, and you pull together a process to resolve the problem. It's a way to identify where the problem is, and engaging with people, partnering with people, collaborating with people who knows more in depth about the problem, because they are sitting there and they are knowing the problem. And then the full journey that you went through with that India problem that you just mentioned, that clarifies how clear you were from a leadership perspective, right? Then you mentioned about your team player attribute. Being a team player, you got to move as a team. It's a we, not an I. So
Correct.
you made that aspect very, very, very clear. And also you mentioned about your accountability. And in the India example, you mentioned about you were accountable, and once it is done, it is not washing hands and then say, oh no, the project is over, I'm done, I'm gone. Rather, taking an interest to follow up, to identify if there is still a need, if there is still a need to give some further assistance, guidance, support, and being there to help and assist. That's another
Yep.
fantastic quality, right? And then the last and the third item that you mentioned about is competency. You bundle competency as one single thing, but you also mentioned about competency with the skills, competency to gel within the culture of the new organization, new company, uh, new bunch of people. It may be an old company. You have been working there for few years. However, when you took on a managerial role, the people that you need to interface are going to be different. Their culture
Yep.
could be different. And the
Yep.
bunch of people that you may have to work with may come from a different cultural or country base. So that's another identified attribute of yourself that gives greater clarity of your mindset moving forward, moving towards where you want to go into your next level. Having
Yep.
talked about all those, what are two or three advices or tips, whatever you might want to call them, that you can share with the aspiring managers?
Okay. So so if I come from the context of coming from a single contributor to a new manager, right? So I would say, of course, as a manager, so initially I shared, right? If I look at the the percentage, um, so 60 to 70%, I'm working as a single contributor, and maybe 30 to 40% as a team, and as a team or some form of management activity, right? So once I go into the actual manager role, it will be the other way around. I'll be spending more time in terms of the management and the communication, and less time on the day-to-day activities, because I will have people or have a team to help me to deal with the day-to-day operation, right? So so looking at this change, I think first and foremost, right, at least for me, some of my challenges when I initially faced, even though I have some heads up, I would say a few months. So firstly, is on delegation. So because when I was a single contributor, right, I'm very used to try to do everything and solve all the issues myself, right? And once I go into the manager role, and especially when my guy is still new and he's still learning, so it's very easy for me to, you know, to try to solve everything,
Mhm.
do it myself, uh and and at the same time, right, so not only I do not delegate well, I have less time for for those higher value activities, but more importantly, right, I'm actually not letting him, my team, right, to learn, yeah, so to really hit some of the roadblocks and to learn from it.
Okay.
So this something I've learned, and I'm still learning, that that sometimes, right, the analogy of giving a fish versus to teach the person to fish, right, is something that I'm still learning.
Okay.
and and in fact, I've also recently experienced that it's really good to, you know, even though I know that my team, right, might fail if because if he or she, right, continue what he or she wants to do, but I think it's a good thing to let him or her fail, right? And so that after that this failure, we can, you know, we can then have a chit chat to reflect on what went wrong
Okay.
and what can be further improved.
Mhm.
And of course, as a subject matter expert, right, I can offer some suggestions or at least the methods that work for me. But I need to be mindful that what worked for me, right, what my style, right, might not necessarily work for my team,
True.
right? So my style, right, will be a good reference point because it succeed, right?
Mhm.
But and but not necessarily it's a copy and paste. It's a good reference point, a good learning point for he or she to come on he or her own style to resolve the issue. So this is on delegation. So when we talk about delegation, we also need to have trust, that I can trust my team to be able to achieve the deliverable. And of course, the prerequisite is that I need to make sure that I have defined the scope and I define the deliverables beforehand, right? And then delegate and then make him or her accountable
Mm-hmm.
and hands off whenever possible. So there are some of the two key learnings on delegation. So the first is, when I know the problem, I do not want to do it all by myself and give opportunity for my team to learn. And secondly, of course, that's where the trust comes in. That since I delegate to you, since you're in my team, I trust that you will be able to achieve what you need to achieve. So that's what I learned about delegation. I think secondly, I also learned that especially sometimes when you have peers who become who might end up reporting to you, that there needs to be a fine line, right? Of course, friendship is still important, but work is also important, and especially when your once your peer starts to report to you, right? So that's where the professional relationship, whereby we need to make sure that, hey, we are working, right. You are reporting to me, and then what needs to be delivered needs to deliver, because if you fail, I also fail, and the team fails, and nobody will succeed, right? At the end, right, we will not be able to get our bonus, our rewards,
Mm.
right? So that's where, when your peer becomes your direct report, right, you need to manage the relationship professionally.
Okay.
So that's on I think that's on I think these two things is on the team management, your own team management. And maybe I just had to touch on one more point in terms of communication. So I shared earlier, at least in my context, right, because of the increased visibility, there's a need for me to literally, in some sense, learn some new skills in terms of communication. And it could be as simple as just listening, because once the team goes global, right, you will be exposed to a lot of accents from many countries.
Mm.
And that's one. And secondly, right, I have a very strong Singaporean accent, right? So not necessarily my US folks or my Europe teammates will be able to understand me. So I mean, it's as simple as trying to speak more clearly, to be more mindful of my pronunciation, to speak slower, which because I tend to speak fast, especially when the time is tight, because we have many meetings, right? and and communication is one, and the other one is the culture. So I be also be mindful of culture. I think there are many lessons or many literature can read about cultural intelligence, right? They have this thing called CQ, cultural intelligence. So it's something that I need to learn also. So learn about people's culture, like for example, in certain culture, right, you do not want to disturb them when after office hour, right? Working, for example, like working OT, or it might be a norm in Asia, but it might not necessarily be a norm in certain countries. So simple things like that, right? And of course, the difference in personality, which after working for a period of time, right, you know that the other person, this is his or her working style. So maybe, for example, right, if you know you're this important stakeholder, needs to be given a heads up before you give him a call,
Mm.
versus someone who is okay, that you have something urgent, you just drop him or her immediate Skype call, right? So this will create greater understanding, greater empathy, and of course to improve your working relationships. And it's what I've done is pretty important for a cross culture and cross boundary, because you don't see that person, you see, right? And you need to be mindful of all this, and having some form of etiquette, right? Of course, etiquette is a good start, but you want to deepen the relationship, especially for working remotely and cross boundary, right? You also need to understand the other person, his personality, his likes, his dislikes, in terms of working style, for you to make sure that you have a very good synergistic partnership, and achieve our shared goals and objectives. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's my point about communication, which I've also learned and I need to learn quickly. Yeah.
Very good, very good. One thing I should commend the way you pulled them all together. For the last question I asked, you know what was going on? This is a real big pleasure of having these type of Zoom calls or Zoom sessions. I suddenly saw your energy level shooting up when you started talking about things that you get engaged, and when you started doing things full-heartedly. First thing, you talked about delegation, which is one very important aspect of a manager, right? Being a manager, you can't be doing what you were doing in the past as an engineer. So
Yep.
even though there could be an urge that, hey, this is so easy, it can be done in 5 minutes, why are you struggling? Here is a
Yep.
solution. Yeah, you can give it today, tomorrow, but you can't be doing that every day. And delegating, and very importantly, you called out that analogy of you are teaching somebody to fish, not feeding fish every day. Let him fail once. That from that failure, let him or her learn and then come back. So that's very good tip that you have shared. Delegation, and you bundle that with the level of building the trust, being there to support, but giving that freedom for someone to learn. And by that process, you're building trust within the team. Okay,
Yep.
and open communication, especially when it comes to when you are in a team and you move up one level to a managerial position. Your yesterday's peer engineer is now within your team and you are his boss or her boss. And how
Yep.
to manage that? Well, that's a fantastic way that you put across to say that pull the person in and make the person as an ambassador within the team in order for him or her to be together with you as a team to succeed. So
Yep.
a way to make that as a, hey, I'm doing a different job. We are still colleagues and we are in the same team. That's a fantastic message as the second tip. And then the last one that you touched on is communication. Communication with across organization, and of course, in an MNC setup, it can be people who are sitting in other countries and even cross continents, regions. And one thing that you highlighted, um, that is something I've also experienced. Individual countries have individual culture. You rightly mentioned, in some countries, after their office hours, when I call them, it is more like disturbing them. They don't like it, right?
Yep.
It is the same even for customers, not within the space of colleagues. So in my past job, what I used to do or what I used to tell my team is that if you need some information from the customer, put up front a note to the person to indicate that you're going to be calling. If not, if you have to call, then call the person and apologize first in the sense that, hey, sorry that I'm disturbing you at a wee hour. This is very much needed in order to solve your problem. You set the stage and move forward from there. Then you won't be feeling as if you're disturbing somebody, rather you're calling to help that somebody.
Yep.
Similarly, Australians are very particular about the timing. You tell them, I'm going to call you at 3 p.m. Don't call them at 2:50, 2:55. Just call them at 3 p.m. Don't call them at 3:10. They want to stick on to that and they are very vocal, and then they will even tell you that. And you also mentioned about the culture, speaking fast, and you have to adjust and neutralize. This is one particular layer of thing that we have done for our India team. Indian accent is very strong, and
Yep.
we tend to speak really very fast, and people won't be able to really get what they're talking about. Okay, so
Yep.
it's a local language accent with English language on top of it, with a cultural fast space. going together. So
Yep.
we had a center in India for providing support. So we have to neutralize. So bring them down, neutralize as much as possible. It's not 100% cleanup thing, but nevertheless, that's something that is very important, understanding the other party's culture, communication patterns, and the requirements before gelling
Yep.
together. So you brought those three fantastic tips or advices to the emerging managers. Great sharing. Probably one
Yeah.
last.
Hope it helps.
Yeah, definitely,
Hope.
it will, right? The reason why I'm saying that it will is because they are hearing it from an emerging uh, leader. I'm calling you leader. I'm sometimes using interchangeably manager and leader. There is a difference between a manager and a leader, right? A leader is a person who leads as a team, not only authoritatively directs. And I love to see managers evolving as leaders. Manager is a position, leader is a passion,
Yep.
right? Bringing that attitude of I am leading and this is my team is always wonderful. Okay, so
Yeah.
um,
Totally agree.
so what really needs here is we need to be very much focused on, as a leader, very much focused on the team success, very much focused on the customer success, very much focused on what is needed for the organization. So you bring what the organization needs and translates them in the smaller chunks that the team will be able to take, work, and deliver, which satisfies customers. So,
Yep.
so leadership is a process, it is a journey, and certainly it's very much enlightening to talk to a new and upcoming manager, and then you give those fantastic tips to the first time managers or the managers to be folks.
Yep. Hope it helps.
Who is going to be watching this? Okay,
Yep.
fantastic. Anything, any question that you have for me, or is there anything that you want to share as a closing comment before we close the session today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay,
I just like to wish all those watching video all the best in your journey. Don't be afraid of taking risks, right? You never know, right? The little risks that you take, what are the rewards that will come, right? Because if you don't take any risk, nothing will happen,
yeah,
right? But you take calculated risk, right? Your chances of success is much higher than your failure. And again, the word failures, right? It depends on definition. There's no failure. There's always learning. So with this mindset, you never fail, right? You
exactly.
will only succeed. You either succeed or you learn.
That's a very
So
nice way
just go for it. I think in today's context, when when the world is volatile, right? It's very volatile, very uncertain, right? It's a good opportunity to take risks. Yeah, because things change very fast anyway. So it's even riskier not to change than to change. So just go for it. I just like to share as a closing remark to those young enterprising and young emerging leaders or leaders to be. Just go for it, right? Because you will never fail. You only learn or you succeed. Yeah.
That's the energy that we want to move ahead and march ahead, Victor. That's a very nice way of putting your closing comments. Certainly, there are so much of value that people can take out of our conversation today, and I wish you all the very best to move on to the
Thank
next.
you.
And
Thanks, Suresh.
it's my pleasure. Thanks to you, indeed. All right, you take care.
It's my pleasure too. Take care. Bye.
Bye
Talk to
bye.
you again.